Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Shouting into the Void. This is a weekly series with myself, Connor, and my good friend Liam, where we go through Doctor Who from the 2005 revival. Every week, it's another episode in chronological order. And I'm very shocked to say we've made it to the end of series 2. It's episode
We did
13.
5 months.
Oh, don't say that. It feels like, honestly, it feels like part of me is like it's been years, and the other is like, oh, it was only yesterday we started. I was like, when Jake shows up in Doomsday, I'm like, it feels like I've not seen you for 10 years, mate. But
Yeah,
it's only been like 6 episodes or something.
I've missed that early 2000s haircut.
I've definitely not.
No, it's
Um,
terrible.
Although I've got a point actually that I might want to come on to later on about technically
Is that your negative? Jake's
no,
hair.
but technically that's not an early 2000s haircut, but we'll come on to why it's not. I'll make a point.
Ooh, stay tuned, folks.
But yeah, this is episode 13, Doomsday. I'm sure nothing bad will happen in this episode. I'm sure everything will be sunshine and daisies. Everyone's going to live happily ever after. There's not going to be any heartbreaking moments that make people tear up. I'm sure it won't become one of the most emotional episodes of Doctor Who in the new series.
No one will do their duty for Queen and Country.
No.
Just
Everyone
terrible.
just completely shanks their duties. So no, sort of. But yeah, so this is part two to last week's Army of Ghosts. We pick off where we left off with the Cybermen having literally invaded. That it's not a process of invasion; they have taken control. And then we've also got the Daleks in the vault. I guess it is like the basement of Torchwood, coming out of the sphere, setting up a nice conflict. How brief it may be, which I'm sure we might come on to as well.
That was surprising. Anyway, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
So, what did you think of the episode as an episode and as a series finale?
I liked it in terms of both of those things. In fact, I will say I think I preferred part one, which surprised me, but I think I did. This one was very talky, I found, whereas I feel like things happened a bit in the other one. But regardless, it's still kind of an iconic episode to look back on. Like, what was it, 15 years later? 15 years this week, in fact.
Yeah, it was. It was last Friday or something like that.
Yeah, heaven forbid we are old. But yeah, there were some emotional moments in there that, to an extent, still can land. Maybe with hindsight and stuff and how things go, it's just the nature of how it is. I think this has lost a lot of the impact it had when it initially aired for me. But still, I think it can be effective. The cast are really great on top form, I would say. Love having the Daleks and Cybermen meet to an extent. And yeah, I think it ties things up with this series in a pretty satisfying way. As like an ending to a series, I think series one probably ended on a stronger note. But again, that had a regeneration, so maybe that's a bit unfair. But this also had Daleks and Simon meeting for the first time. But yeah, it was still a really enjoyable episode, I thought, throughout. Even if there were some things I think they could have changed, etc. But it was a good ending to the two-parter. It was a really good ending to the series. Could have been a really great ending to Rose's character arc, but we will see her again, but we'll get to that in a few months. But yeah, overall, I still really enjoyed how they capped off the series.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat, really. I think it's probably about the same for me over both episodes. I'd probably rate the same. Everything that was set up gets paid off. The performances are great, especially at the end. Obviously. I like the Dalek and Cyberman interactions. I think some of them are the highlight of the episode. And it's part of it's like, why have they never done it again?
Well,
I mean,
why have they never done it? Why have they never done it before? You may be asking. Stay tuned for some fun facts.
But yeah, I mean, I'd like to see them on screen again. I mean, I can definitely think of a few reasons, and we'll probably come on as to why they've never done it before or again. But yeah, just I had a lot of fun watching it. a lot of it, I think I was waiting for the moments to come out because I knew what happened in the episode, so I was just sort of waiting for the next big thing. I don't think that should count against the episode purely because that's me, and my experience with it in the past rather than watching it now. But overall, excellent. I think it does tie. I think after this we get a slight soft reboot, jumping on point the next episode. This ties 1 and 2 into their section, and then we go into series 3 as its own, and then 4, which I think helps. So I think if you've not seen the previous, because there's a couple of references to series 1 in this episode anyway, so if you tie 1 and 2 in one bow, this is a good end for that, and then we move on and new fans can come on, and that happens a lot throughout the show. It happened a fair bit during Matt Smith's and Capaldi's, which is good. You always need that. You don't want a show that's too complicated that you can't jump on in the middle. I'm looking at you, Supernatural. But you want a show that is accessible to everyone no matter where they come in, but you don't want it too accessible, like a sitcom where you can just whatever. But yeah, so how we normally do this is we normally do 3 positives and 3 negatives. I think I've got a few more positives again this week, similar to last week, but it wasn't as hard to think of the negatives, I don't think.
No, I agree with that.
But again, that's not necessarily to say anything against the episode, because you could come up with 4 negatives for the best episode ever, and and it could still be your best episode ever.
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody could find 5 negatives with Paddington 2, and it would still be the top film.
No,
on...
impossible.
Oh, fair enough.
I mean, I haven't seen Paddington 2.
I saw the first, and went, I'll get to the second at some point. I've never seen, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah,
but
I enjoyed the first one.
So we're gonna get absolutely dragged in the comments
next week. Paddington 2.
I wish.
Little hiatus.
This is now a Paddington 2 account. Every video is dedicated to Paddington and Paddington 2. But no, we will start with the positives and then come on to the negatives. So what's the highest praise you can give this episode?
Mr. David Tennant and Miss Billie Piper, I've put. I think now this is more so the actors than the characters, I would say. I don't think this is like my favorite 10's ever been, my favorite Rose ever been. But I do think this is those two at basically the top of their game. I've put the last third of the episode in particular because of the whole thing that happens, the companion exit, but they're fantastic.
There's spoilers in this, so if you've not seen the episode, just go and watch it now. You don't bother, because there's no point beating around the bush. It's been out for 16 years.
Damn it.
Go and see it. But yeah, it's just...
Rose is gone and she's never, ever, ever coming back.
She's never going back.
Never, ever, ever, ever.
Her shadow
Definitely
won't
not in 15
linger over
episodes.
The show. She won't be the one that
for
keeps
all of
us.
series 3. And
well,
then she just comes back.
Series 3, all of the show, always Rose, always she going back. She's going.
This will be the year Rose. Billie Piper's going to be the next Doctor, folks. This time it will happen. It hasn't happened the past 5 times we've confirmed it's happening, but still.
If I keep saying it's coming, it'll happen eventually. It's the law of averages.
But anyway, David Tennant and Billie Piper are great. And yeah, the whole bit where she's hanging on to the lever and then he's like screaming after her and she gets pulled in. I think that's one of David Tennant's best performances in anything ever. And Billie Piper in the scene at Bad Wolf Bay at the end, she's fantastic as well. It's a huge loss to the show, losing the actress Billie Piper, maybe not always the character Rose Tyler, because she does have a few moments in this one and I'm like, come on now. But yeah, those two are fantastic. Considering they don't actually interact in this episode until the halfway point when the Doctor comes in with his little white flag and everything. They still have plenty of great moments together. And this, I don't want to say a fun little send-off, I guess, for the pairing. But I do think chemistry-wise between the Doctor and Companion, I think this is one of the best examples you can find in Doctor Who. And yeah, they just hit out of the park with how this episode wraps up.
Yeah, I think the ending is warranted, I think, for this. You feel it's a good payoff. You feel like you get something out of it. It doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't feel like you've been cheated or anything. You feel like, this is the correct way for it to end, at least for now. And that's because of the character development that's happened throughout the past 2 seasons and the moments in this as well. And I completely agree. Billy Piper's not on my best list, but David Tennant is. Mainly,
What?
I know, but mainly because I think he had more to do in this episode. Again, similarly to last week, I
Yeah.
think he got more screen time. Although Billy and Rose did get more in this episode, I still think the spotlight was on David more.
Yeah.
So that's why he's sort of pipped the duo to the post, really, with him being my top. Just, the scene where he confronts the Daleks, just how nonchalant he is, just laughing in their face, just absolutely taking the piss. I find that amazing.
Completely alone.
Yeah, it's great. I love it.
No wonder you scream.
And it's the
The doctor will not.
Yeah, I love that. I love the realization what he has when Pete's like, "Hey, you can do this. I have faith that you can do this." That's a great moment for his vindication.
And I love the oh shit moment when he sees the Dalek on the laptop. Like, oh yes, there we go.
There's that, and then there's the bit where he realizes what his plan is when he turns around with the 3D glasses on at the window. And then there's obviously the whole beach scene. And then just the acting with like the single tear going down the face.
Acting.
I was like, oh,
that is day one acting school, the single tear.
Yeah. And
masterful.
And it's just he executes it perfectly. And then even from that, to go from straight up depression to hang on, what the fuck is this bride being in my TARDIS? Just an easy switch, I think, is.
We'll get to that.
Excellent. Yeah, I know. It can be a bit, but hey, you need to tease it because there's no next time, is there? At the end of this,
they could have done instead. It's fine.
Well, they came out in July.
I'm over it.
They probably didn't even film the Christmas special yet. They probably had nothing to show. But yeah, I know. So yeah, just David Tennant in this, and it also, I think, for me, makes me more excited to see the 10th Doctor without Rose.
Yeah.
Not that she like chained him down really, but that he doesn't have that kind of responsibility, I guess, to her. Like it sounds strange, but it's as if you're it's not even worse. It's as if you're looking after your friend's guinea pig and you're like, I can't take I have to focus on it completely. I can't expand into other characters and things. Whereas I feel that with series 3, he doesn't feel as responsible for Martha. Which I guess is harsh on Martha, but he has more freedom to be himself, I think, rather than be what Rose wants him, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I might change my mind completely, and then as soon as Martha comes in, think it's exactly the same.
I think that might be the key thing with why Martha was kind of treated like shit by the show when she was the main companion. I think series 1 and 2 feels very much through Rose's eyes. This is how she sees things. I'm not sure we quite get that with Martha in series 3. I think it is more so this is the Doctor's
Although
show.
They do try to make it that with literally the whole first opening with Martha in Smith and Jones, with it being a family.
And then they forget.
Yeah, but then it is very much. And I mean, part of me is like, yeah, I do want to see it through the companion, but also the Doctor is the more interesting character. He's the one with the more interesting adventures. You read any of the companion-like books, and they're normally pretty good. I think one of my favorite Doctor Who books is a companion-like one. But it all depends on the writing, I guess, more than anything. And David Tennant does excellently with the writing in this episode.
He does.
Which, that's the highest praise you can give an actor, I guess. So what is your second positive?
Now, this feels kind of morbid, considering how the episode goes out.
Yeah.
No, the humor. This episode's really funny.
Uh-huh.
I relished it. I've put the bitch fight of Canary Wharf, as it's known to the stratosphere. The Daleks and the Cybermen just taking the piss out of each other is always going to be the most hilarious thing.
Yeah.
Why does TV even bother? They should just shut TV down after 2006 because they can't top that being not funny. So that's very good. I just think the little moments are very well handled and appropriately used, because when it gets like shit hits the fan, it's on mission stuff, we leave the humor behind. But I think they inject a lot of it in very well placed for like the first 2/3, the Daleks and the Cybermen being the key one. But also Jackie I thought was hilarious. The fire extinguisher line kills me every time.
Yeah.
And he like thing to like recognize where you are. That's hilarious. And the I don't care about that. How rich? Like she's just hilarious in this. I really enjoyed Jackie in this story. I kind of forgotten how great she was in this two-part, which makes sense because bye Jackie, goodbye Jackie. So yeah, I was surprised at how much I enjoyed the humorous elements, considering I normally hate overly used humor. I feel like it's really well balanced in this episode.
Yeah.
And considering it's a finale and the stakes are high and how emotional it ends, the fact that it still can be as funny as it is, I personally found quite impressive. So I wanted to give a shout out to that, because even when I was like, okay, let's just get to, you know, the really good bits now, there was still, you know, a line every couple of minutes that would make me laugh out loud. So the humor is humorous.
That's fair. I think there are a lot of decent jokes, I guess. It's the iconic line of Daleks do not identify themselves, and then the someone's like, well, bitch, you just said who you were.
We got him, yeah.
You fell for my cunning trap. And then but the only thing I don't like about that is Dalek's like, oh yeah, but oh, you're the side. Oh, okay, that's who you are. You're the Cyberman. I'm like, okay, all right, whatever.
Took him ages to recognize him for reasons.
And then Mickey's, when the Doctor appears on the screen, it's like, oh, the female's heart rate's increased, and she's like, oh, tell me about it.
Tell me about it. Oh, that's another bit of humor with Jackie when she's like, there's never anyone else, and then it cuts to Dr. Mickey being like, bitch, please. That was hilarious as well.
And actually, that'll bring me on to my second positive. The reunion between Pete and Jackie, I think, is like one of the most wholesome moments in the show.
That is my fourth positive.
Yeah. It's just, I was watching it and I was like, this is amazing, because you can see that they're both trying not to like fall for it. Even straight away, Jackie's like, hey, that's just a ghost. I thought they weren't real. And then it takes a moment for her to realize Pete's trying not to, like, definitely trying not to, because he's already made the big speech about, oh, that's not my wife. My wife's dead.
And it's so earned as well, because we had Father's Day in series 1, which sets up everything so well. I don't think it would have been as impactful if we just first met the parallel Pete in Rise of the Cybermen. But the fact that we had the real one that we met in series 1, and Rose always talks about her dad, you know, Jackie was talking a few episodes ago about how lonely she was. Rose and Jackie talk about Pete in the series 1 finale. There's just so much build up to it. And it's such a wonderful kind of resolution to something they didn't need to actually resolve, I think, but it added so much of the emotional core to the story, I felt.
Yeah, this is another thing that feels warranted in this episode. You know, it feels like, I don't know how planned it was, but it feels like it was a very natural end to that.
Yeah.
To that story for those two. And even like, I try not to think too hard about it, because I'm like, would that be weird? Because it's technically not your wife, but then you know that they're also technically the same because they have the same characteristics. It's just our Jackie doesn't have the arrogance of the other one. She's probably more humble and more down to earth, which Pete will probably prefer, if we're being honest. And then obviously at the end they say that Jackie's pregnant again, I think, which is incredibly wholesome as well. Just because that's something that you feel she's had these 2 seasons of being alone. Her only child's left her effectively for 2 years, 3 years, literally for a whole year at one point. And just to have
and was willing to do so forever.
Yep, literally. And for them to have a new kid on the way, even though Jackie's probably I don't know how old Jackie's supposed to be in this episode.
She said in Namiko she's 40.
Right. So there you go. So that's quite, in 2006 times, I guess that's quite old to have another child. But maybe it's different on a parallel Earth. Maybe everyone lives to 150. So really.
Well, we know time moves faster. She might need to be pregnant for a month.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. We'll come on to that again. That's in my notes. But yeah, I think just that whole reunion is amazing, very wholesome, and it's very much the start of the emotional half of the episode, I think. So what's your third and final positive?
Final bit. The emotional beats of the episode. I enjoyed the emotional side of things. I think obviously with returns and other elements in this episode that maybe I'm not so fond of. I don't think it hits as much like Rose's exit and everything as it did in those earlier years after it first aired. But I still want to give some credit to the fact that it is a really emotional departure for Rose at the time, because it's more so a criticism, I guess, of later episodes when she actually does come back, as opposed to this one, that that might undermine the ending a bit. But I certainly, the tension once that first lever explodes and Rose is like, I have to fix it. Yeah. You're just like, oh shit, we know where this is going. But I still felt that tension. I knew what was going to happen, but you really just get so invested in that moment, I think. And it helps with the two of them just being really great in that bit. But I was surprised that I could still feel anything after this episode. And, you know, over the years, being not as fond as Rose as I used to be when this first aired, for example. The fact that I can still be like, oh, that sucks so bad, and you just feel awful for them. I think that's still really impressive and is testament to how emotional the episode gets. Because, you know, when people talk about like Rose and Doctor Who and stuff, people will talk about this rather than her coming back in series 4. So you know that this still is going to hold up, and maybe should have been where things ended. But that's a discussion for series 4. But it's a really emotional episode. Even like the Pete and Jackie stuff, I think works, you know, flawlessly for me. And Yvonne. Yvonne, she did her duty for Queen of Country.
Yep.
Queen, absolute queen. Love always beats the Sidemen, apparently.
Yep.
I'm not as big a fan of that, but it's quite funny when she cries oil.
Yep.
But yeah, I love the emotion behind the episode, and the fact that it still holds up so strongly for the most part after 15 years is really impressive.
So I guess my question based on that is why does this not hold up with Rose as much as the Time War being like Gallifrey's destruction being retconned, not impact series 1's finale? What makes that difference? You know, why? Because obviously that's a big part of series 1's finale is the fact that the Doctor had to destroy Gallifrey, but we know that he didn't do it. So then how come Rose coming back isn't the same as Gallifrey coming back later on?
Well, first, I'm not as big a fan of Rose anymore.
Yep.
And the Time War, you know, Doctor Who survived the entire classic series without it.
Yep.
I don't think it's that integral in the grand scheme of things. And I feel like that's just not a sustainable plot line in long term, because the time was always going to come back. I mean, they brought the Master back and all the time was gone, God knows how many times. And I think Rose coming back changes, you know, the emotions that they felt at the time. Now it's like, well, you know, they may look back, yeah, that was a bad day, but she's fine. She came back. We met each other again. For those past Doctors, they still did all that stuff in the Time War. That those memories still hold with them. They still went through all that stuff. And for those particular incarnations, they never get that resolution. Whereas 10 did get resolutions to losing Rose. So that's for me why it holds a bit more weight to get rid of it.
You know, I'm just playing devil's advocate. That's all it is.
Come at me, Whovians.
But yeah, that's fair, I think. And I've been listening to, I think it's that, I forgot what it's called. It's one of the big finishes with the 8th Doctor set on sort of Gallifrey. He has to face this Time Lord called the 11, which effectively he has all of his incarnations fighting in his body. So he's like some kind of serial killer, and just like that whole thing and being on Gallifrey and all the Time Lords, I'm like, see, I'd love to see this in Doctor Who on the show if it's done right. But no, apparently for some reason we just have to keep either visiting there for like 5 seconds or destroying it.
Yeah, they just don't have the budget for Gallifrey, unfortunately. I don't think.
But they had it in Classic Who, all right.
Yeah, well, but it looks shit because it's Classic Who. That's why there's no budget to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get the frustration with the whole like retcon Time War thing. It's not like they completely retcon that it ever happened, because it still was a thing.
I know, but still an explosion, and it was made to look like Gallifrey was destroyed, and the universe is made to think that it was destroyed. Planets
were still like completely ravished and destroyed with it. And I get the frustrations with it, people who are frustrated. But that was also a 50th anniversary celebration of the character. I felt like he deserves that win, especially because he'd been angsty about that for 8 years at that point.
Yeah.
Like, we're over it. We're done. But just imagine how classic fans felt when Rusty Davies brought the show back and killed all the Time Lords, which was a big part of the classic series. You know, it's the same kind of change and retcon, I guess you could say. So Doctor Who just needs to constantly change itself and keep going.
That's the thing, isn't it? That's the big thing, that the show will constantly evolve, whether you like it or not. You don't have to keep watching.
Leave.
Yeah,
to bring it back to Doomsday, companions will leave.
Yeah, and you know, people probably stopped watching when Rose left. They probably stopped. You know, they went, "Oh, that's my favorite character. I don't want to watch anymore." And it's fair if you want to stop watching a show after a certain point. That's fine. You do that, but don't shit on people that want to keep watching and keep getting involved.
Yeah,
that's
the thing. Rule. People will be like, "Oh, 50th was terrible. You know, they should have brought back all these classic Doctors who are literally 70 years old,
who look terrible.
All these big parts, like, oh, blah 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 blah, do all this." But I'm just like, come on now. When did you stop watching? When David Tennant left? Okay, yeah. So why are you commenting on a show you don't even watch anymore? You don't know what the quality is like.
Exactly. Yeah, you are correct. But that was a massive tangent.
It was a massive tangent. So I can't even remember what we were talking about.
Emotional moments.
Yeah, it was your fault because you asked me the question about Rose and the Time War and stuff. No, so blame Connor for this being 2 hours long.
Yeah, sorry. I just get carried away. So my final positive, and I can imagine this might not be...
We're still on the positive stuff.
Is the Daleks versus Cybermen. I thought it was a great thing to put them together. Obviously, I like when they open the dialogue. And they chat to each other. For me, it makes sense that the Daleks can easily kill the Cybermen. Pure A, because this is Cybermen from a different universe that have no Daleks, so they in theory can't prepare for it. B, the Daleks are notoriously, supposedly the most powerful alien, villain. And this is also 4 Daleks that have been specially upgraded and set out for this task. So it kind of makes sense, although I'm sure you don't like it.
I mean, I don't. I think it makes sense that Daleks would completely trash him. I don't have to like it.
Yeah. I think the only thing that I would have preferred for the Daleks vs. Cybermen is that one of the Cult of Skaro was killed.
That's all I want. That's all I would ask for.
Especially because when they break into that room and it's like they're all, they make a point of saying, "Hey, the guns can work against them," but then they don't.
Yeah, if anyone has a good plan to stop the Daleks, it's the Doctor, and their plan does nothing.
Yeah,
all it does is activate the Genesis arc.
Yeah. But yeah, I think I like the fact that the Cybermen realise that the Daleks are too powerful, and they're like, we're gonna have to fuck off back to the parallel Earth and regroup.
And then they make them even more chumpy by having Yvonne bloody take out. Come on, Russell T Davies, please.
And then I like the Daleks, but it's effectively like the Daleks turn up and went, I don't give a shit about the Cybermen. We're gonna fucking take over this world no matter what, mate. And I like that the Cybermen sort of have to team up with the humans and with the Doctor to try and stop them.
That's a really cool idea. I like that a lot.
Yeah, and that's a similar theming to Pandora Opens when they do eventually team up against the Doctor. And I like that we kind of get that here where they're like, hey, we could team up. So it kind of sets that baseline, although the Daleks like, no, you're useless. We're not going to use you. But then
bitch, please.
But when it works for the Daleks, they'll happily come, hey, do you wanna do it? I just like it. I just like the concept. I wish we'd see it more often. Obviously, the obvious reasons why we don't see it more often is because the Cybermen are going to get destroyed all the time. But we could, they set up in series 6, series 7 that the Cybermen constantly upgrade to fight against whatever they're fighting.
Series 7. Yeah.
So you could easily bring back some Cybermen that have upgraded themselves to fight the Daleks toe to toe and have the Doctor crash land in the middle of this war that's been going on for however long because the Daleks keep improving, the Cybermen keep upgrading. That could be an interesting concept. But I just think there's a lot of potential here that is currently left untapped, and it all stems from this episode. And I think the interactions with both villains are great. It's just a good choice of villain.
Yeah, I think it's about, it's been long enough. I felt they could do it again now. And what 100%. I'd love is they have like a Dalek episode and they don't announce that Cybermen turn up as a cliffhanger. Just like a cool power.
Yeah, I think similar to this one. Just a reverse of this one.
Just reverse it. I think that'd be great.
So now if that happens in the next series, All right, we need to start putting bets on the football because we all know we have the psychic abilities. Um, but yeah, I just think it was great villain for the finale. I think it adds to the finale aspect of it, having these two iconic villains. It makes it a big showpiece, and people think, oh yeah, the series 2 finale, that was the Daleks versus Cyberman one, because that's what people remember. So have you got any other sort of positives you want to mention?
The only other one I'd probably have was the Pete and Jackie resolution to that arc, which is wonderful.
Yeah, fair enough. I want to give an honorable mention to the music in this episode, especially when Rose goes through the void. Yeah, I know, and it's like it's so iconic now that one, and I think the music in End of Time when 10 regenerates. Those two tracks are probably the most iconic ones from Russell.
It's the kind of music I will stick on at 3 a.m. and cry on the sofa. Like, what is the point of being alive?
Exactly.
Now just stick on that music.
That's literally it. Yeah. But it is, it's such an iconic track. I love Marigold's music. It's always rock solid throughout the series. We haven't mentioned it as much this series, I don't think. Which I think is fair. I don't think it's been as prominent this series.
Up your game, gold.
I know, right? And I think it does for series 3, 100%. But again, that's what I mean, is this feels like it's continued on from series 1. A lot of the same sort of motifs and themes come in through that. Yeah. So you don't notice it as much. But series 3, it freshens itself up along with the show. But yeah,
I can imagine the Master's theme in my head right now.
Exactly. Exactly. Good. And it's great, and like just the music in this, it really adds to the emotional weight of the scene. I mean, if that music wasn't there, yeah, it'd still be emotional, but I don't think it would be as impactful as it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is why music in TV and film is always important, even if you don't realize it's there. So we are going to head on to the negatives now. Right. I will start.
Mm-hmm.
Rose is quite arrogant in this episode.
That's unlike her.
Oh yeah, I know. I mentioned this to you off air, but there's one where the Dalek's like, "You will touch the Genesis Ark." She's like, "All right." I'm like, "I'm sorry. This is a mass murdering machine, and you're talking to it like your mum's just told you to make your bed."
Yeah.
Like, come on. And then I get when she tells the Dalek about the Emperor, it's playing for time, effectively. It's like, I've got nothing to live for. If I die, fine. If not, I can stall for time and maybe I'll get rescued. So that's fine. But it does very much seem like she's acting better than she should be for somebody that walked into the room and got found out immediately in the previous episode.
Yeah, and when Jackie said earlier, like, she told me about the Daleks, she's terrified of them. Like, if you left that out, I'd be like, oh, that's good character development. Because actually stand up to them. And it's interesting as well, the fact that the Doctor did tell her what she did to the Emperor, because she'd forgotten that at the end of Parting the Ways.
Yeah.
She was like, I sang a song and the Daleks ran away. So I like that she did find out about them.
Yeah, and then she read the upcoming Target novelization of it.
Yeah, must be that.
And then even towards the end, when she's like, she comes back from the parallel Earth to the Doctor, I'm like, oh, you're like, I don't mind you coming back, but making yourself seem like you're the most important person that can't leave the Doctor and he's only around because you're there.
She?
I know. It's like,
I was here first.
Yeah. It's very
there
much...
are like 50 people before you, Rose. Have some perspective.
Well, exactly. It's very much like she feels that if she's not with the Doctor's just going to wither away and die, effectively.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can get why you have that thought. If you've been with him for two regenerations, you might think that. But I mean, it doesn't sit well with me. I don't think it's episode breaking. I think ironically it fits with her character, but I don't have to like it, and I don't. Which is why I'm
start off.
yeah. Which is why I'm glad she's dead. It's why I'm sort of glad that we get the sort of reset with Martha. Even the reset with Donna, we get to see the Doctor interact with these new personalities on a regular. Even if arguably Martha should be more arrogant than Rose, literally because she is a medical doctor. So in theory, she has more right to be, oh yeah, I know about this, rather than Rose does. That's a conversation for another time, probably series 4.
Probably, yeah.
But so what's your first negative?
As much as I like the emotional beats of Rose's exit, I do think it is undermined by a few things. I mean, the one that's not really fair to criticize the episode for is the fact that we see her again in 15 episodes.
Yeah.
But for this episode, the end. I mean, I love Donna. Don't get me wrong. The ending completely kills the moment for me. Like that. Like what? Like great. But you think of how series 1 ended off, that was a cliffhanger and a twist ending that works because of the regeneration and everything. You're like, oh God, what's going to happen next? This is just like, what the fuck? And it's all like super sad and he's crying at the console and then she's just there. And they just repeat that very next scene in the start of the next episode anyway. So I'm like, well, just end it with the Doctor being all sad like Journey's End. And then just play that scene. But again, I was like, well, that kind of kills the moment a bit for me. And all this is the story of how I died voiceover bullshit that I hate. She doesn't die. She gets trapped in the parallel world.
She dies. She's dead on our Earth. She's dead on our Earth.
Tell me who physically dies.
She's dead. What do you mean? Just in general?
She's like, this is a story of how I died. Tell me who physically died in that story.
Yvonne?
No, her. She's like, this is a story of how I died. How is she dead? She didn't physically die.
No, but she
died. Tell me how she physically died, Connor.
She died on our Earth. She is officially dead.
Officially dead, yeah, but she didn't die.
Yeah, but she did on this Earth.
No. Because she didn't die. That Rose is not dead.
But she did. She did. The Rose of our
People
Earth
think she's dead. People think she's dead.
Yeah. So it is
so she's not dead.
So it is the story of how she died.
I mean, you could swap Rose at the start with the voiceover stuff with Jackie, and it'd still work. This is the story of how I died because Jackie's dead.
Yeah,
that's stupid.
You're not wrong.
So it's stupid whoever you use it with. You don't need it. I mean, it takes away from the impact because you know shit's gonna go down.
I do agree that it's ridiculous to have it in, but I disagree that she didn't die because she is officially dead on Earth. Because if you fake your death,
she didn't physically die.
If you fake your death, you will be classed as dead. You will have died.
Yeah, but she's not dead.
But she effectively faked her death.
To us, the audience, we know she's not dead, so there's no point.
But to the Earth, she's dead. To Captain Jack, she's dead.
Yeah.
Until next year.
Yeah, and then he immediately tells her, "No, she's fine." And they're like, "Hooray! Yeah. Oh, good. I'm glad we had that scene. That made it all worth it." It's stupid.
But I get what you mean. I will always argue that she is officially dead on this, but I also agree that it's unnecessary to have that voiceover. It's only there for the trailer.
It makes it a cop-out that it doesn't need to be because it's emotional and sad, the twist anyway. They already announced she was leaving.
Yeah.
I don't think you needed all the foreboding that was coming anyway. And then that, you're like, who are you talking to? So it's like, oh, maybe she's like talking to, she's telling the story to Jackie and Mickey and Pete. I mean, that makes no sense because they already know the story. I mean, that's cuts and she's not actually telling them that anyway. So I was like, okay, never mind. So I was going to be like, you know what, I take that back, but it's done.
Yeah. No, I understand. I do agree with you. That is fair. And speaking of the ending, it just every time I watch it, it always makes no sense to me why Rose has to try and pull the lever back up.
Right.
It just doesn't make sense. Like why?
Because Billy Piper quit.
Okay, yes, but I just like this. They haven't set it up that we have one shot at this. It can't close or it's not going to reopen again. They haven't. Mm-hmm. If they set that up and said we can't let it close, it needs to stay open so everything's through. Fine, it makes sense why she needs to keep it open. But surely you can just wait till it closes, and then go, oh shit, right, quick, put the levers back up, get back on.
Yeah.
Because even if you're like, oh, the Daleks are flying through into the room, they'll be like on their sides. It's very unlikely they're going to be stood up and ready to shoot you.
Can you imagine if she got fucking yeeted by a Dalek though? Straight into the thing.
It's off, boom.
That would have been hilarious.
But then even so, like, at the length of time it's taking that lever to go down, which is quite slow, the Daleks and all that would have already been through by the time it got to the bottom.
Yeah.
So it feels quite forced that's how they did it.
Yeah. And when she gets it back up, then it's like online and locked. I'm like, lock it in the first place. What kind of system is this?
Exactly. And then that's also what annoys me is she pushes it back up. Surely you pull it back up. You hold on and you pull it back up. You don't push it. Because if you're being dragged, you can't pushed very well.
At least hold on to the lever the way you were holding on to the clamp thing.
Right. And she's like, oh, so always that annoying. I admit it's a great way to end it. You know, it's a good death, but it was unnecessary. It's just overly complicated.
And Pete arriving just in time. How
And then
does he know that?
And then taking
And how
5
do they
minutes
not get
to
sucked
leave?
in anyway?
Yeah,
He literally stood right in front of it. That makes no sense. I'll
Yeah.
allow it because obviously it needs to be an emotional ending and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's cool for Pete's character, I guess, that he accepts her. But like, how the hell did you know that she was going to be right there? And
there's like a cut to Pete arriving, a cut to Rose falling, a cut to the Doctor's face, a cut to Pete catching Rose, a cut to the Doctor's face, a cut to them again, a cut to the Doctor's face, a cut to them again, and they go back. Like, that's a good 2 minutes where they should have been sucked in.
Yeah, you should have been sucked
going
in.
through them.
Right
He's
there.
covered in the shit. He should be going in. But I'm saying this about the ending as if I hate it. I mean, I like the ending. I like how it's done. I like I like it. It just, the more I think about it, and I always keep thinking about it, is that why, if you've made such an effort to stay with the Doctor, do you risk that? And then if we're going even further back, if the Doctor intends to send Rose back, why does he pick up both magna clamps?
But
surely he only needs to bring one. But yeah, it's fine. Again, it's not something that ruins the episode for me. It's just something that I love to bitch about whenever I get a chance. Because I like to think that I wouldn't do it in that situation because I'm not an idiot. But hey, that's a plot point for a number of episodes where the Doctor makes people think they're basically immortal and they go and risk their lives too often and it ends up with death. That's the whole thing that's basically Rory's character arc in series 5. So it is what it is. I wouldn't have done it, but I get why it was done.
Yes.
So what is your next negative?
We've already briefly talked about it. They made the Cybermen look like chubs.
Yep.
Just let them kill one stinking Dalek.
Yep.
No one needs Dalek just get rid of him.
Or Jast.
It's disappointing to me. And even more so because this series has been, let's have a 2-part about the Cybermen. Look at this. Let's spend a lot of time reestablishing these. And we have the whole first part of this story being about the Cybermen perfectly invading. And then in instant, actually, they're rubbish. Don't care about them.
Yep.
Like, why did you spend 4 episodes of this 13-episode series on them then? I think it kind of undermines their impact on the series and their use of them a bit. But again, fine, whatever. I'm allowed, if I have a personal preference for the Cybermen, Russell's allowed to prefer the Daleks. It's fine.
Yeah. And that's fair. I mean, you could even, if you want to play on the cards of the Cult Skaro to upgraded to be affected, you could still have it that these old Daleks that have been trapped in this prison are weak as shit. And they could, just have the Cybermen shoot a couple down. Just do something. But I guess it's also supposed to add the pressure that, we need to get this sorted quick. Because although the Cybermen are a pain, if the Daleks get out, everybody's fucked. So I get why it's done, but I do agree that, just have one of them die. Because even so, like, you could have, if we think of when the Cult Skaro come back next series, spoiler, but again, that's been out for 15 years. When they come back, Dalek Sec obviously is the leader, so that's fine. But then you only really need Dalek Khan to also be there to leave. So you can easily kill off one of the other two.
And I love how Dalek Khan is done with a really deep voice in this, considering it gets like higher and higher every time you see him afterwards. It always makes me laugh when you think of like, one of them will die. And then this one is like, Dalek Khan.
So I love it. And then as I mentioned to you, I bought the Doctor Who, was it Myths and Creatures and Myths or something like that book from HMV, and in that it shows the origins of the Cult Skaro, which is quite cool because I never even considered it. But they were 4 Daleks picked because during the Time War they were thinking with their initiative. They were thinking outside of the box, which is often not something the Daleks are supposed to do. But they were handpicked by the Emperor, which is obviously mentioned. But they go into, and they even say, Dalek Tech was specifically given this upgraded armor. Everyone was given upgraded armor and upgraded weaponry and all sorts. The only thing that I don't like in this to do with this is that the Doc's like, it can fight against Dalek armor, polycarbite. And I'm like, hang on a minute. Isn't Dalek armor Dalekanium? Which one is it? Because I'm pretty sure in the next series. They're like, oh yeah, they've used Dalekanium on the
in literally 5 episodes.
Yeah,
they
yeah.
called it something else entirely.
So I'm like, stick with one. Surely it's not that hard to go back to your script and see what you said. Unless they said Dalekanium and then he changed it on set to polycarbite and then they didn't change it the second time. Who knows?
Yeah. Kids can say Dalekanium a bit easier, I suppose.
Yeah, it's like unobtainium. It's a stupid name, but at least people remember it. But yes, that was a very small nitpick for myself. I was like, so what are they made of? Come on, don't do this to me. Unless here we go again. The Cult of Skaro is Dalekanium and all the other ones are polycarbite, and so the Doctor doesn't know that. Whatever. I'm sure there's easy ways you can justify it if you want to get that nitpicky about it. When I'm in charge of Doctor Who, I'm going to make sure that there's a reason.
Our scripts are going to be water fucking tight.
Yeah. So my third negative, and this is also quite a nitpick, is they reuse a shot of the Cyberman being killed. And they thought I wouldn't notice. So when the Dalek kills the 2 Cybermen in the corridor, it falls down face first, goes this way. And there's some rubble on the floor, which is also quite strange, like rubble on the floor and a Dalek in the background. Too close for what they were in the corridor. And then when the Cybermen come into the room, in the sphere room, and the Cyberman dies, it falls again. But this way, and there's some rubble there, and the Dalek in the background. It's the same shot, just flipped. And I'm
they do flip a lot of shots in this episode. There is a scene where they flipped it so Cyberman sees the wrong way, which is hilarious.
Right, exactly. So why? Surely it's not too hard to record another shot of a Cyberman hitting the floor, especially because there's one bit in when the Daleks are going through the warehouse where literally a Cyberman's coming out. He gets shot and he literally just goes. And you just see him just deck it. And it's like, if you can do that, why can't you just do another one of a close-up? A nitpick, a very big nitpick that I've only noticed because I've seen this episode a number of times. And it annoys me to hell. Purely because it's even worse with the first bit where the Cyberman dies because there's no rubble on the floor. That's how it gives it away, is that there's like black rubble on the floor from where the doors exploded later in the episode.
And the first 2 Cybermen that get killed fall backwards, and then it cuts them on the front.
Yeah. So it's fine. It is what it is. It's not a major
Again, the
thing.
Cybermen being done dirty.
Yeah, literally. It's an editing choice. It's obviously tight for time, and they didn't get a chance to do another shot. Whatever. I'm not too fussed. It's not as if it's ruined the show for me. It's just one of them things that when you watch the show for so often, you pick up on the continuity errors. Like Classic Who is notorious for things like that with carpets that are supposed to be alien floors and all sorts of shit. Yeah. There's one moment in Journey to the Center of TARDIS where Clara's stuck under some rubble, but you see it like wobble when she picks it up and it's supposed to be super heavy. And I'm like, I know there are restrictions, but come on, retake it again, surely.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what's your final negative?
The tortured elements are gotten rid of within the first 10 minutes.
Right.
Yvonne's gone. Yep. Raj, thank God Raj is gone in 4 minutes. No.
Yeah, to be fair.
You're in agonising pain, sir. What is that performance?
I was thinking of your comment about his acting from last week when he started. I was like, he's good. And then he starts getting like sucked. And I'm like, oh, no, that's not
Wait, good. Stop. Are you a Cyberman, Raj? Is that the twist we're going for here?
Yeah.
That was bad. Yeah. So I think that's gotten rid of within 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And the fact that we spent the entire series building up to Torchwood is an odd choice. And like, okay, why even bother then? Because after the first 10 minutes, this could have been set literally anywhere. And I was like, oh, that's kind of a shame. Especially because setting up Torch and everything was such a fun part of the first part. It feels odd to just completely discard it after a series of build up. And yeah. But again, there's a lot going on. Maybe if this was an hour long, we get a bit more of it. And in an extent, Tortured can explore it with Cyberwoman with mixed results.
Yeah.
But again, I think that was kind of strange.
Yeah. But I think the whole military organization aspect of an episode is done much better in the Sontaran experiment because Unit is present and you feel like they're present throughout both of those episodes, whereas Tortured, it very much feels like they're gone. It's the Doctor, the preach. I don't know if they're still preachers, but the people from the other Earth and the Cyberman against the Daleks, not really tortured. They just get killed off straight away. But yeah, I do agree. It's that they're not there. They're slightly wasted.
Yeah. And I suppose like one thing with the Cybermen, like other Cybermen that are converted just on Earth to prepare for the Daleks, surely they're still just there.
Yeah. Well, that's it, and that's why with Cyberwoman in Torchwood, it's like, why didn't she get sucked up? You know, was she the only one that was converted? Her and Yvonne, were they the only two?
Did they really have enough time for all the Daleks and Cybermen across the entire planet to get sucked in?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, again,
but those are little things.
And again, almost definitely, there's some big finish about about the Cybermen that were left behind on that Torchwood. I can almost guarantee it. There'll be something out there for that.
Yeah.
There'll be some explanation. Not a negative, but I do want to touch on the passage of time, I think, for the parallel Earth. So it's 2010 there. No, not that. No. So it's 2010, isn't it? It must be, because it's already, when we go there in the earlier in the series, it's 2007, because Mickey makes a point of saying it's exactly this year, which canonically is 2007. And then when we come back, they say the Cybermen started disappearing 3 years ago. So therefore, surely we're around 2010, 2011 now, which it just, why do you need that?
Yeah.
Why do you need
and
that
on that
quick?
subject of that scene, enough with the Harriet Jones slander, Doctor Who.
I know, right? God.
Keep an eye on her. You don't know who this version is. How dare you?
So yeah, it's just, it doesn't bother me, but it's just a strange choice, especially because Mickey, Jake, and Pete look exactly the same. Just say 3 months. Just say it was 3 months ago. You don't need to say 3 years. It adds nothing. And then so that also means that if time passes, like if they're always 3, but they can't even be 3 years ahead. So who knows? It's probably like Rose should be like 50 when she turns up in series 4, if that's how fast they're going. And it kind of takes away from it being a parallel Earth if they're going faster, because that
that's true.
It just doesn't. It's not parallel, is it? Yeah. And it's just, and then it's even more coincidental that they showed up at exactly the right year when they crashed through. Again, a small nitpick. It's not, just say 3 months, or even 3 weeks. It was about a few weeks ago, whatever. Especially if you just can have them all back, and it just, and then I guess it also explains why the Doctor took so long to get through to Rose, because for him it was like, I guess for him he went straight to his TARDIS and straight to that supernova and did it, but for Rose it was a good
burnt up a whole ass
6 months, I guess. I don't know how long it was, but like, you can just say it was that night. There's no need to make it all, it was so long ago and then I heard whatever. So just strange choices from that aspect. I guess it just tries to make it more sci-fi. I just don't think it works very well.
Yeah, the build up to the Bad Wolf Bay scene is quite bizarre. It feels very detached from everything else.
Yeah. Like, how can he? Is he just in her mind and he can just whisper?
How are you doing? You're not already burning up the sun. Is this happening?
Like, I've always assumed that there was already a sun going supernova and he's just channeling the power into the TARDIS. Yeah. He's not just picked a sun and killed off a solar system just for this.
Strange.
But yeah, it's strange, and it doesn't, like, again, another example of the Doctor having these weird supernatural type powers that show up once and then never show up again in the series. But whatever, it's a sci-fi show. I guess they can do all this. I haven't read that Time Lord book that's out, so who knows. So before we move on to the fun facts, have you got any other notes, positives, negatives, anything else you want to mention?
The only other negative thing I guess I have is not big on them romanticizing Rose willing to just abandon her mum forever. For a guy.
Yep. That's fair.
That's not ideal, especially because she was all about you upset my mum 3 episodes ago. And she's like, can't just leave her, can I? Earlier in the series. And well, you want to though, right now. And not even with a goodbye or anything so I'm not big on that, but again, that's a little thing.
Yeah, that's fair. I also think the Dalek / the Genesis Arc CGI isn't terrible. When it's shooting at the Daleks, I don't think it's that bad. It's not amazing, but it's definitely not as terrible as it could have been, and it's definitely not as bad. It's definitely not the worst CGI we've seen this series. Anyway, which is fine.
Yeah. Oh, and the Rose and Mickey flirting. For God's sake, just stop. Let it go, Mickey.
Yeah.
You're done.
And then like, so when the Daleks are like attacking, the Cybermen are like, oh, all Cybermen need to converge on Canary Wharf. I'm like, so how long is it going to take those Cybermen to get from Australia? Are they going to have to board planes? Like,
no.
Yeah, they just get to the ocean and go, oh no, we didn't think of this. Yeah, so that's another thing, and it's a very nitpicky thing. And obviously, when Cybermen eventually come back in series, whatever, not outside of Australia, they learn to fly.
Yeah.
Which is fair. That makes more sense, but it just doesn't make sense to have all these Cybermen in like Australia and India. I mean, India, I guess they could walk all the way from India to the UK because you could, but you can't.
They have the time anyway before they get sucked in. Like, why even bother saying that? Just
that
say like if you're nearby, come on.
Yeah, all London units converge to Canary Wharf. Just say London units. You don't need to say
we're invading. Oh wait, everyone, just leave the countries and let them have their freedom again, so you can help us in Canary Wharf.
Yeah, but then even so, when they start getting sucked in, the ones from the Taj Mahal were just stood there and they just leave.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? But
the Daleks would eventually have found their way to them anyway if they just keep flying out like that. But just stay where you are and wait.
Like, it takes 24 hours to fly to Australia. How fast was the Void pulling them in to get them sucked into the Void within 5 minutes? Or did they just stop and then like fall into like the Everest because they were like stuck over and just stopped and they just dropped from there? Like, but I mean, again, maybe they could do that. Maybe that's something that they could, they could do some comics or whatever with. I know, obviously, in the next Doctor, the Cybermen and that fell out of the Void when they were getting sucked in, that kind of thing. So again, it goes back to the Daleks versus Cybermen. There's plenty of potential here for stories, but Doctor Who doesn't like to explore those kind of things, I don't think, especially not in the mainstream, which is a shame. But never mind. So what are your fun facts?
Fun facts, indeed. This is the final episode where this TARDIS console set is dimly lit. It's bright as fuck from here on out. So there you go. I quite like it, this dimly lit, but never mind. It's fine. The music that's playing when Rose is sealed off in Petersfield is the same music from Rose when Nine shows at the TARDIS for the first time, which is sad. David Tennant and Billy Piper were the only ones to get scripts for the farewell scene in advance to avoid any leaks, and the director only got it just before they filmed it. What do I do for this scene?
Yeah, but like you could then leak it after you've read it, so that, just all right, fine, sure,
whatever works. Donna, or should I say the bride's appearance, was filmed during the wrap party to avoid keep it a secret. So it was only a limited crew. So that was a surprise to a lot of people in that end. Like, what the fuck is Catherine Tate doing?
I didn't film this. What's going on?
Wait a minute. Have I been fired? Oh no. This is the only Rusty Davies era finale to not feature a regeneration scene. Because we have the Master in the next one. And then we have David Tennant's fake out one.
I suppose that's if you're counting Utopia as the finale, isn't it? Because some people don't officially.
Those people are wrong. It's a 3-part.
I mean, it's 100% a 3-part, but some
it ends on to be continued.
Don't count it. Yeah, but yeah.
I think it's a bit more messy with like is Turn Left part of a 3-parter or not.
I would say so. Yes to that. And I was just thinking.
I don't count that.
I was like, there's no regeneration, but obviously the Doctor does regenerate into his hand, obviously.
Obviously.
Obviously, God's sake,
So while this is the first time the Daleks and Cybermen meet on screen, the concept was first considered in 1967. But creator of the Daleks, Terry Nation, said no. So they couldn't do it. Because he had all the control of the estate there. And then he died. So
people were like, oh.
Then his family were like, yeah, you can use the Daleks. Do what you want with them. Yeah. While Russell T Davies told the press that Rose was gone for good, he told Billy Piper, see you in 2 years. So there you go. That's fun. Always meant to undermine it. Thanks, Russell. And we talked about this, I think, for the Satan Pit episode. The Jathar sun glider scene had a whole ass sequence when they're supposed to like climb up to the top of the building. Instead, they just take the lift because budget concerns. So we got the actual beast in the Satan Pit instead of a child, which I think is a wise decision. And they also considered maybe having an object crash into the top floor of a big skyscraper may not have been the best image to use in Doctor Who.
No.
So I think that was probably the right decision.
But crashing it into Big Ben is fine.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. That's not as tall.
Yeah.
Dalek Jast was originally called Dalek Rabe, and this change was so last minute, the name Rabe still appeared on all the merchandise, like the Back in Time cards, etc. And the reason they changed it was because they thought Rabe sounded too much like Ray, which is hilarious. But, just use Dalek Sec, which is an actual word as well. But okay.
Which definitely isn't very close to sex. And definitely wasn't Dalek sex.
Dalek sex. All the tentacles.
Yeah, especially
when he gets this time, yeah. Oh damn.
Oh, God.
Never mind. They probably had a right laugh about that when they wrote that
100%.
and made that costume. Production was torn over who should actually save Rose. Shave Rose.
Just turns up. Oh,
this is nearly a very different episode. I said I'd save you, but
it goes again. She pulls back in.
Anyway, production was torn over who should save Rose. At the end, Rusty Davies and executive producer Julie Gardner wanted Pete to do it, but Noel Clarke and other producer Phil Collinson wanted Mickey to do it. But ultimately, Pete was chosen to show that he'd accepted her as a surrogate daughter, which I guess is.
If anything, I'd rather Jackie than Mickey.
Jackie would have failed. Jackie would be going in.
No, I know. But I think that would have showed good.
How does this work? Jackie, there's only one button.
It would have shown good character development for her to do it, I think. But then maybe that's too much of. Oh, Jackie's keeping her. Maybe that's.
Yeah, it was more symbolic, I think, for Pete to show that he would be willing to save her.
Especially considering he ran away the last time they met. He was like, "Oh, bye," and he's just fucked off.
Bye.
Yeah.
So that's fun. And then the entire ending of the episode where the Doctor and Rose are split apart is inspired by the His Dark Materials trilogy by Philip Pullman, because that also ends with two lovers being trapped in. Spoilers for His Dark Materials, but it ends with two lovers being trapped in separate worlds and they can never see each other again. So Rusty Davies took that plot point for this, and Philip Pullman, who wrote them, was very flattered by the reference, which is better than suing him. And my lawyers will be in touch.
And now when they make it for the TV, that moment they're like, "Hey, they just ripped off."
They're gonna be like, "Oh my god, they ripped off Doctor Who." Bitch, please, I'll have my tweets ready.
Oh god, a lot of fun facts for a fun episode.
Very
obviously.
fun. Yeah.
So as this is the end of series 2, what are you rating this episode?
I'm going to give it a solid 8.
Same. I also gave it an 8. I can't remember if I gave 8.5 last week or not, but
I think you did. I gave it a 9.
Yes, it must have been 8.5.
Pretty solid story.
Yeah, I'd say so, and it's a pretty decent end to the series, I think. And then in that case, what are you giving series 2 overall out of 10?
No, that's tough. I need to think about this. What did I give series 1? I feel like I gave series 1 like an 8 overall. I suppose that's putting together what my actual scores were. Wasn't it?
And if you got don't think just about this episode. We have had Love and Monsters. We have had Fear Her. We have had
Idiot's Lantern. There's been a lot of things I've disliked intensely. But we also had Tooth and Claw and School Reunion. This is tough. Is that too harsh? I kind of want to go for a 6. Maybe 6.5 at a push. Yeah, I would say.
I was thinking 6 for me. I think
I'll go 6.
Yeah, there are more episodes in series 2 that I think I didn't enjoy than I did. There are plenty of middling episodes, but in terms of excellent to poor, I think there are more poor than excellent.
Right. 9 is the highest I gave an episode of the series, and that was literally only one episode of 13.
Yeah. And considering I gave one of the episodes a 4 or whatever, so it's it is what it is.
What my official score is, statistic-wise, is another matter entirely, but it's certainly not looking good based on.
Well, I'm sure we'll probably do a series 2 review coming up anyway, just to go over the whole series in general, and we can discuss more about our scores and what we enjoyed about the series overall there, which will appear on the channel at some point, either next Tuesday or in the middle of the week. Depends where I decide to put it. Depends if I just want an easy week. Who knows?
I mean, we're already going to have to film a bit early for the next one. I
Brilliant.
regret to inform you, because I'm at the Formula One this weekend.
Oh, check you out. That's fair enough then. So in theory, next you'll see us will be Series 2 review. But then the next episode after that is The Runaway Bride, which was obviously teased at the end of this one, with the bride appearing in TARDIS.
I'd completely forgotten that was next. I was like, oh yes, Martha. And then I was like, oh wait, hang on.
Nope. Again, it's going to be quite weird watching A Christmas Story in the middle of summer. It's not even going to be quite
fun
cold.
Fact, they filmed it in the middle of summer.
So and you can tell that when they're sat on top of the building, you can tell it's like 30 degrees and they're sweating. So what do you remember about this episode?
Santa's a robot.
Yeah.
That's basically and
the big spider.
My children.
Yeah.
Who I must say I adore. I love the Rhinos. The child. Yeah, I'm looking forward to checking this out. It's going to be weird to remember the Noble family before Wilf, because that's when they truly shine. But we do have Donna's dad, bless him. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what I think of it this time. I think I kind of enjoyed it. It's never been my absolute favorite Christmas special. But there's some stuff to enjoy. I'm intrigued to see what I think of Donna in this one.
Yes.
Because I think this is Donna at her absolute worst. And I'm like, you're so annoying.
Yeah.
You're so Catherine Tate comedy character here, as opposed to who she ends up being is one of the best, I think, new series companions. So I'm intrigued to see what I think of her in that. But yeah, I remember enjoying the villain. As campy as it is, it's very RTD, but I think it's a good performance nonetheless. There's some good performances in there. I think it can be quite funny at times. Heartfelt endings, all the Christmas stuff that we come to expect. I will be intrigued because I very rarely rewatch Christmas specials unless it's Christmas time.
Yeah.
So approaching Christmas Invasion was kind of strange, but I ended up quite enjoying that for the most part. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this one compares.
Yeah, I think Russell's Christmas specials are easier to watch in the middle of the year than Moffat's, because although it's set at Christmas, it doesn't feel like Christmas is forced down your throat in these ones. But a lot of my issues with Moffat's Christmas specials, it feels like Christmas is being forced down your throat. Like literally when they're on Trenzalore, they're like, "Oh yeah, this town's called Christmas." And I'm like,
I hate that. There's no need for that. It's all snowing and shit. You don't need to call it Christmas. It's just because he wanted the line in it. So, the Doctor who stayed for Christmas.
Yeah.
It's one line, please.
And then obviously as well with Moffat, I don't like his Christmas specials purely because the worst one is the Doctor, the Witch and the Wardrobe, whatever, which is the worst Christmas special.
That is truly terrible. That being said, I love A Christmas Carol. That's my favorite Christmas special.
Yeah, I don't mind A Christmas Carol. And
what else do we have? I like the Snowmen, mainly because Jenna Coleman's in it.
Wedding of River Song.
Husbands of River Song.
Husbands of River Song.
I'm not a big fan of that one.
Not too much
in the last 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Time the Doctor's fantastic. I love it. I would defend it to my dying day. But
That's
Doctor Win and Wardrobe's not ideal. I really like Last Christmas as well.
Yeah, I don't think I'm a fan of Last Christmas. I think it just felt it was a bit. I'll have to, again, we'll get to it eventually.
We'll see in 2023.
Yeah, probably. And then obviously as well with Moffat, you've had the Mysterio one. Is it Dr. Mysterio?
Return of Dr. Mysterio.
That one, which was just cashing in on the Marvel hype at the time. It was an easy story for Moffat.
And it has Nardole in it.
Yay! Yeah, but so does Husbands of River Song.
I'm so excited for Series 10 because I have a negative sorted for all the Night All Trial episodes.
Oh, yeah, but we might get there and you might think, actually, Nardole's pretty good.
No. I mean, there's a kind of episode where I'm fine with him. But they try too hard on. It's fine. It's Nardole's Marmite. This is what it's established.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
We will get there, but first it is the Runaway Bride, and I'm excited for it, even if it is going to be like sweltering mid-July heat when when we watch it.
Yeah, at least with Christmas Invasion, it still was kind of like not too bad weather-wise.
It was winter, spring. Now it's summer.
Now it's like going to be boiling hot. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not in the mood for Christmas.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, that'll probably be in a couple of weeks' time. And I'll have to dig out my quiz book so we can have a quiz on the 10th Doctor for Series 2.
It's your turn to be quizzed.
Well, by all means, you can find some questions and we'll have.
I've got the quiz book. I found it.
Oh, well, there we go then. So I'm sure we'll do that at some point.
Straight to the hard section.
Because that, I imagine, we'll probably do that after the Christmas special. So we've got.
Yeah, let's see how ridiculous those questions are.
Yeah.
Some of those Ninth Doctor ones, my God.
It could be worse. It could be the Trivial Pursuit.
What a time.
The Trivial Pursuit.
That's also true.
Don't get it. Don't bother. No. But yeah, that's it for Series 2. We've said goodbye to Rose. We said goodbye to Pete. We said goodbye to Jackie. We said goodbye to Mickey for now. And it's fresh start. David is all by himself. We leave the TARDIS with David because let's just say that's where the episode ended. And yeah, we'll be back next time to just have a chat of the series overall.
Yeah. See you in November, Rose.
Bye.
Bye.